planning meals on a budget. The knowledge and skills and competencies acquired from the degree and from the internship was used to formulate this presentation. All right, as we all know, the food prices and the cost of living on a whole has been increasing with the impact of COVID-19. So it pays to have knowledge of how to plan meals and how to do so affordably. All right, so this is what we're going to be talking about today. So planning balanced meals, we'll go into why it's important, using the Caribbean 6 food groups, what is a balanced meal, and then how we combine foods to make healthy meals. Then we would talk about eating healthy on a budget and look at an example of the cost breakdown of a home cooked meal. So why is planning balanced meals important? Why take the time to do this in the first place? So planning balanced meals increase variety in the diet. Variety is important anytime you're talking about diet because different foods give us different packages of nutrients. So by eating a wider variety of foods, our bodies get more nutrients and more benefits. So by taking the time to plan, you would have a visual of what is being eaten when. And in so doing, you can schedule and you can plan and see and make room with your work schedule or your classes and so on when you would be able to factor in these meals. And instead of just eating the same meal over and over, you can come up with different meals to give you that variety and to give you a wider scope of nutrients. Another benefit of balanced meals or taking the time to plan is that it reduces food wastage. So this may be something that we could relate to. Oftentimes we tend to buy foods, mainly fruits and vegetables. We intend to eat, a certain amount, and then we may forget about it and realize maybe at the end of the week that we had an excess that we did not eat. So because they remain and they spoil, then we have to throw that away. And who knows, that amount could have given us some meals if it hadn't been used. So by taking the time to plan, we would have an idea of what is going to be eaten by us or our families, depending on who we live with. And in so doing, we could plan and schedule and say, okay, this amount is going to be eaten so that there would be no food wastage. Plus, we could also, when you're planning, you could also use leftovers from meals that you had before and incorporate them into new meals. So in that way, you won't have any wastage or food spoiling. Another benefit is that planning balanced meals saves money because it reduces food wastage and also saves time because instead of having to think about, okay, what you're going to cook for dinner, what am I going to eat today, what am I going to carry to work, all these questions would already be answered because you would have a schedule of what is going to be eaten and when. So it saves time in the long run and it really frees you up to think about and to do other things. Planning balanced meals can also indirectly have a positive impact on our health. So as we know, food is fuel and eating is a very pleasurable experience. So really taking the time to plan and to be more intentional with what goes into our bodies gives us more control over our health and over what we eat. In addition, the balanced meals themselves also curb hunger and fuel us throughout the day. So that, generally we tend to feel a little sleepy in the afternoon. Even balancing your meals simply can help sustain you and give you that energy so that you have sustained energy throughout the day. Okay, so what exactly is a balanced meal and where do we start with planning such meals? So before we go into a balanced meal, we have to understand what food and the nutrients they provide. So to do that, we look at the Caribbean 6 food groups. So this picture here shows the Caribbean 6 food groups and the different foods that are present in each food group. So for example, let's start with the staples. The staples food group provide carbohydrate or starch, and examples of foods in this food group would be flour, as you can see from the picture, oats, cornmeal, breadfruit, ground provisions, green bananas, rotis, breads, crepes also would fall into here, as well as pasta and macaroni. right? And these foods, also provide dietary fiber. The second group here is the legumes, which are peas and beans. So under this group would be all your peas and beans. So chana, lentils, black beans, pigeon peas, etc. And nuts and seeds would also fall under this food group. The third food group is the foods from animals. And under this food group is all the animal products. So milk and milk products, so cheese and yogurt, as well as eggs, various meats, fish, poultry like chicken and turkey, as well as organ meat and any wild meat as well. The fourth group here of warning is the fruit, and this would include our local fruits as well as any imported ones, right? And the vegetables also would include the local as well as what we get imported. So fruits and vegetables both provide dietary fiber as well as vitamins and minerals. Legumes and foods from animals are known for their protein, as well as providing additional vitamins and minerals. Fats and oils are the last or the sixth food group, and these include all the vegetable oils. So for example, soybean oil, canola, olive oil, coconut oil, ghee, butter, and margarine would also fall under this group, as well as avocado and ackee. All right, so these six food groups form a balanced diet. So when we talk about planning balanced meals, we use four of these food groups. So a balanced meal is a snapshot of the diet that uses foods from four of the food groups. So these four main food groups, as you can see from this picture here, are the staples, the foods from animals, the legumes, and the vegetables. So these four main food groups are the building blocks or the foundation of preparing balanced meals. So you may be wondering what happened to the other two food groups, the two food groups being fruits and fats and oils. So we don't leave these out completely. While the four main food groups involved in meal planning in this case are the staples, foods from animals, legumes, and vegetables, the fruits and fats and oils also come in to complete the day's intake. So fruits provide vitamins and minerals, and the fats and oils are added for flavor as well as additional energy. So all in all, these six food groups would come together to form a balanced diet, even though we use only four of them to plan meals. So let's go into a bit more detail about planning balanced meals using the four main food groups. So first we have the staple foods, which would be those that are rich in starch. So for example, the roti, the rice, the potatoes, the ground provisions, etc. These provide carbohydrates, which are the main source of energy for the body, and also dietary fiber. And dietary fiber helps to keep us full for longer. The second food group involves or present in a balanced meal is foods from animals. And foods from here would provide protein, which is for maintaining muscle and also for proper immune function. Foods from animals also provide vitamins and minerals. The third main food group in a balanced meal should be legumes or your peas and beans. And these would provide dietary fiber for a healthy digestive tract and also protein. And the fourth food group used to create balanced meals would be your vegetables. And these provide dietary fiber, antioxidants, as well as vitamins and minerals. So you can think of this as a formula for creating balanced meals. So based on that, we'll now take a look at some examples. So the first is steamed rice, curry pork, dal, and sauteed pak choy. So here we have foods from the four main food groups. So the steamed rice would be from the staple food group. The curry pork would be from the food from animals food group. The dal would be the legumes food group, and the sauteed pak choy would be from the vegetables food group. Let's take a look at another example. So this example is a vegetarian option. So from this example, the food from animal food group was left out. So this fada roti would be the staple. The curried soya chunks would be the legume. The pumpkin would be a vegetable from the vegetable food group, as well as the cabbage and lettuce. So we have two dishes coming in from the vegetables food group. Okay. So in addition to that, we don't always have to have the four food groups coming in. We can still have balanced meals if we, let's say, if we run out of one food from one of the food groups. So for example, this meal is sauteed potatoes with baked chicken and sliced cucumber. So the sauteed potatoes would be from the staple food group. The baked chicken would be from the food from animal food group, and the sliced cucumber would be from the vegetable food group. From this meal, the food from the legumes food group was left out. Right? And now meals also do not have to be individualized, where we have one dish representing one food group. Because in Trinidad and the Caribbean, we tend to have a habit of making one pot meals or making combination dishes where we have food that would be from the different food groups coming into one pot or one meal. And an example of that is chicken pilau with coleslaw. So let's break it down into the food groups. The rice would be the staple. The pigeon peas and the pilau would come from the legumes food group. The chicken would come from the foods from animal food group, and the coleslaw would be representative of the vegetable food group. All right, so thus far we have spoken about planning balanced meals and using these 6 food groups to create balanced meals. But planning meals on a whole is determined by our budget, by the amount of money that we have to spend on food. It is the budget or our available income and so on that determines what foods we buy and how often we use and what foods we use regularly. So the question then is, how do we have balanced meals on a budget? How do we nourish our bodies and do so economically? So let's take a look at some tips for eating healthy on a budget that could help reduce your food costs. So the first is, when you're planning meals, you plan meals using leftovers and items that you still have at home before going to purchase more items. So oftentimes we may have items left in our fridge, our freezer, our pantry that could be combined, that can be prepared and combined to give us food for maybe 2 or 3 meals without even having to go to the grocery as yet. So, and we could save a lot of money by just using leftovers and items that we have before going outside to purchase more. Our next step to cut costs is scheduling 1 or 2 vegetarian or meatless meals per week and using peas or beans to replace meat. Peas or beans are also great sources of protein, so they make great meat and poultry substitutes. So just to show you all how the cost would be. So for example, you should go to the grocery and buy a variety of beans and peas. So I use black beans for this example, split peas or dal, and red kidney beans. So in total, these prices and this quantity would come up to 2.5 pounds of dried peas and beans for $28.75. Whereas if you were to buy 2.5 pounds of chicken, that would be a whopping $40. Of course, I'm aware that the prices and so on would fluctuate with different areas, but as a general consensus, that's still a large difference in cost. So by scheduling 1 or 2 vegetarian meals per week, you can actually reduce the amount of money you spend on food. A third tip is to make a shopping list before going to the grocery or before going to the market. And the reason for doing this is that with a list, you buy only what is needed. So you reduce impulse buying, which is where we go in the grocery and we just buy things that maybe look nice or that appeal to us in the moment, but they may not be food or items that we really need. So by making a shopping list, that takes care of the impulse buying and spending unnecessary money. Another tip is to buy fruits and vegetables and produce in the market instead of going to the grocery when possible. I know for convenience, it's tempting to get everything bought in one place, but sometimes the fruits and vegetables tend to be a lot pricier in the grocery as opposed to the market or even a mini vegetable store. And the last step is to pay attention to the days and times that market items tend to be cheaper. So depending on the area where you live and on what markets you go to, sometimes they have days and times where their items may be a bit cheaper. So you may really have to get to know your market and see what days and times the items tend to be cheaper and see if you can fit in going to the market at those times to get a discounted price. Okay, so in light of all these, you may ask yourself, so then can balanced meals be more affordable than fast food? Or can balanced meals be economical and also at the same time be nourishing for us? So for example, as an example, we'll just take a look at the cost of a home cooked meal. This was calculated for a family of 6. So this was one of the meals that we looked at the beginning when we were talking about using the food groups to create a balanced meal. However, I just added in a beverage as is typical with mealtime. So the meal is baked chicken, sauteed potatoes, and sliced cucumber with orange juice. And these would be the food costs included. Now, these costs does not include water and gas and so on. It is solely the food cost. So for a family of 6, the total they would spend to feed a family would be spent to feed a family of 6 with this meal is $88. It's around $88, whereas per person it's $14.70. Now, if we compare this to a fast food outlet and whatever deals they have, we could really see the difference. And the difference would come in the nutrient value as well, because here we have a very well-balanced meal with a good source of fiber, protein, as well as vegetables and vitamins and minerals. So the difference is not only cost, but also in the nutrient value. So let's say, as I spoke about substituting chicken with meat, with peas and beans, let's see what the cost would look like if we remove the chicken and we substitute peas and beans instead. So here we have a vegetarian option. So you can see the large difference in the cost. So the whole family could be fed with around $40, and for each person that works out to about $6.60, which is around the price of a doubles, right? And then if we look at now with both chicken and black beans in the menu, the cost for the entire family would be $100 more or less, and per person that works out to $16.71. So this really shows you how substituting beans or incorporating beans into the diet can really reduce the food cost. Okay, so thus far we spoke about planning meals and how to plan balanced meals, and we also looked at factoring the cost as well and how to reduce food costs. But what if we get hungry between meals? And this is where healthy and tasty and quick nutritious snacks come in. So some tasty suggestions for snacks on the go. If it is you're on your way to work or in between your classes, when you're on lunch break, break time, we have sandwiches. Now, sandwiches are very diverse and very cost effective as well. So a simple idea could be a peanut butter and jam sandwich, cheese sandwiches. Other tasty options for snacks would include fruits and unsalted nuts, plain yogurt and fruit smoothies, whole wheat crackers and cheese and tomato, carrot sticks with a yogurt ranch dressing, and even a trail mix, which is made with nuts, seeds, and dried fruits. Okay, so with that, we are nearing the end. So just to recap what was covered. So we talked about why take the time to plan balanced meals in the first place. We talked about the Caribbean 6 food groups and how we use 4 of those food groups to create balanced meals. We also talked about tips for eating healthy on a budget. And we looked at a real life example of the costing of a balanced home cooked meal. And then we also looked at some suggestions for healthy snacks. As I mentioned at the beginning, the competencies and skills and knowledge acquired from the degree and the internship empowered me to really put together this presentation and to share this knowledge with you all. And this is one aspect of a dietitian's work. You know, the work that dietitians do on a whole is very broad, and this was one area. So other areas that dietitians involved in is to conducting nutrition assessments, which is where we take detailed information pertaining to a person's diet and lifestyle and use that to develop a treatment plan that is centered around using nutrition to better their health. We also tailor nutrition to meet the needs of people with medical conditions and also special conditions. And we also host lectures and presentations to educate people on diet and health. So in order to become a registered dietitian, one would pursue a BSc in Human Nutrition and Dietetics degree, which is a 3-year program in our department. And this degree program incorporates knowledge from diverse disciplines, in addition to just food and nutrition. So we would have biochemistry being involved, physiology, which is understanding how the body works, as well as management, because dietitians can find themselves in management roles, as well as behavioral sciences and social sciences. So the courses offered by this department as a component of this degree would cover courses or fields within these disciplines. So you would have accounting, economics, food science, food preparation, food service management, sports nutrition, among others. After the 3-year degree, the next step to becoming a registered dietitian is pursuing the diploma in institutional and community nutrition and dietetics. And that is a 1-year program. This is also known as the dietetic internship, and it involves training and practical experience at different institutions. So this is where dietetic interns, as they are so called, would gain experience, hands-on experience and training to build off the knowledge gained in the degree. So they would be placed in institutions such as hospitals, health centers, and food service establishments. While these things are located in Trinidad, regional students have also been facilitated in their islands as well. So they would acquire experience in their own country as well. After completion of the dietetic internship, up next is registration with the Board of Nutritionists and Dietitians of Trinidad and Tobago. And upon this registration, then an individual would be issued a license, the RD or Registered Dietitian License, to practice in Trinidad and Tobago.